welcome to QDL. QDL is your look at who and what is making news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest. As we have talked about many times on this show, the workplace, she is changing. Remote work has made many rethink just what work is. Is it hours spent working? Or is it getting a series of tasks done? More important, how tightly is one related to the other? Do we need 40 hours to accomplish our tasks? Or do we kind of subconsciously manage our time so that our tasks, hey, magic presto, take 40 hours? Many are suggesting that a shorter work week may become the wave of the future. While companies and even countries test out the idea of a shorter work week, there is a U.S. congressman who has introduced the 32-hour work week bill. Now, the bill doesn't mandate 32-hour work week. It has more to do with how the federal government would define the work week, and this is tied into overtime hours and so forth. But let's say your company wanted to try a 32-hour work week with the same pay, of course. How could you make a shorter schedule work for you? Well, joining us today is leading time management expert and productivity coach, Donna McGeorge, who has developed a modern roadmap for enhancing the amount of time we spend in the workplace. The best-selling author of the It's About Time series of books, Donna is unveiling life hacks to get more done in less time without sacrificing your sanity. Hi, Donna. Welcome to the show.
Dirk, thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. All the way from Australia. Appreciate it.
Indeed.
In a press release I got from you, you asked the question, can 4-day work weeks make you more productive? And I believe you meant a 32-hour work week, not 4 10s, as we call them here in the States. So can we be just as productive in 32 hours as we can in 40?
Well, the short answer, of course, is yes. The long answer is you're already doing it. So lots of studies have shown that there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens. I don't know what you might call it, where we kind of have fluff or we faff around in our days. And if we started to just be a bit more conscious around those things, we can actually tighten things up. One study out of the UK actually showed that in an 8-hour workday, we're actually only productive, as in producing what our KPIs expect us to produce, for about 3 hours. In fact, it was just under 3 hours. Now, if any of your listeners or viewers are thinking, oh, I'm way more productive than that, sure, double it. Go ahead and double it, right? Maybe you're 6 hours more productive, in an 8-hour day. Either way, the research definitely suggests that there's a lot that we do in a day that isn't terribly productive. Probably the best, though, just if you're wanting some absolute empirical evidence, Microsoft in Japan trialled the 32-hour work week last year, and the year before they've continued with it. And they found there was actually an increase of productivity when people were working 32 hours of up to 40%. So not only can you be as productive, but most of the studies show you can be more productive.
So this was a 32-hour work week that was done in Japan. Is that what you said?
Yep.
With Microsoft?
Yes. Now, it's okay for you to be a little incredulous about this, because I know Japan has a very strong reputation for, in fact, long hours, hard workers, all that stuff. So there's actually been a few Japanese companies, Toshiba, Panasonic, have also had a crack at it. And they're all getting good or positive results from a productivity perspective.
What about in the United States or Australia, other places, in any other places you can think of that have actually tried this and have some data?
Yes, there's heaps. So as you'd expect, there's a lot of tech companies that tend to do this. I don't know why it is that tech companies often lead the way with new and different formats of work, maybe because they can, I don't know. But in the US, you'll see companies like Basecamp, Bolt, Monograph. They're all, but they're tech-ish companies. A lot of countries and companies do summer hours. So here in Australia, L'Oreal in Australia does summer hours where they give Fridays off, for example, for people to, have an extra day off. And what they found with that was fascinating. all their sick leave went away, all their personal leave went away. Because I guess it's the things that, the personal errands you want to run, stuff like that, I don't know. But they found that all of that just dropped. And so their productivity increased as well. But you've got a few local governments doing it, like in West Virginia, in Colorado, there's a couple of cities and counties that are looking at this even for their works. I don't know what you call it over in America. Sorry, we call it council. Okay. So that's the local government people that work in the local government. They're doing those kinds of hours as well. But it's definitely a thing that people are looking to try. And as I said, I think the benefits around flexibility and I don't know, morale and people's well-being, particularly mental well-being, could even outweigh the productivity gains.
So to me, it feels like this talk about not counting hours or working shorter work weeks and that sort of stuff. I mean, it's not like it's a new idea, but it seems like it really has kind of come to the fore kind of post-pandemic as people have gotten used to remote work and working from home and having flexibility to run hours during the day and so forth. I mean, do you think this has kind of exacerbated this idea? Definitely
has. There's people suddenly have had different choices. And, if I share a story about, there's a couple, but one in particular, a man that I know said he always thought he was a really present parent until he worked from home in a lockdown for a period of 4 months. And then he realised just how much he'd missed. Right. And I've got another example of a woman who always had chaos in the mornings, getting a little one off to kindergarten and preschool and all that sort of stuff. And when lockdown happened and she started walking her little one, she went from tantrums and hanging onto the leg every day to actually quite pleasant mornings. Oh. And so they're just a couple of examples around working parents. But I think many people discovered that the commute just wasn't worth it anymore, and what a waste of time that is. And also that they started to have different relationships with people in different ways, because when you're working remotely, things are amplified. And so if I've got a great relationship with you, that's amplified. If I had a slightly less quality relationship with my manager or my team, that was amplified. And so there was just surprisingly, a lot more information and data that came to people that helped them make decisions around how they want to work and if they want to continue existing patterns.
I think most employees and maybe even their bosses are going to think that if we go to 32 hours a week, we're going to have to work faster, we're going to have to work harder, we're going to have to cram the same amount of work into 32 hours. Is that true? I actually expect me to say no. I think we've been led down a bit of a garden path around what we think of as productivity and hard work. So we've been sold a message for about 200 years as part of the Industrial Revolution and the rise, I don't want to be political, but the rise of capitalism that says that hard work gets you ahead, and the harder you work, the better you'll be. And that's okay at some levels, but at many levels that doesn't play out that well. And so this idea of being 100% on 100% of the time just isn't working. So that's the first thing I'd say. I think we've been sold a bit of a dud on this idea that you work hard and you'll get ahead. I guess it's around now working smarter. So some of the examples I think about, one of the books I wrote in the It's About Time series was the 25-minute meeting. And this was because I saw just so much time wasted in meetings. In fact, I think it's called Bartleby's Law, that says that in 80% of meetings, 80% of participants, it's a waste of time for them, or words to that effect. Yeah. And so even if you just said, hey, we're still going to do the same, we're going to produce the same amount of projects or work, so your actual KPIs aren't going to drop, but how you go about doing it is going to be different. We're going to reduce the amount of meetings. We're going to increase our reliance or use of really great technology tools that help us collaborate better. We're going to stop emailing, every man and their dog every time we send a message. We're just, the phrase working smarter gets bandied around a lot, but I think that's the real key to it.
If you expect, it's, Einstein's theory of whatever he said about madness around, doing something different and doing the same thing, expecting different results.
Right.
So if you take into the 32-hour work week the same kind of thinking and mindset around how you do your work, then of course it's not going to work. It requires a shift in that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of these strategies here. I mean, you say that how you handle the first 2 hours of your day can increase productivity and add value to your role. Can you explain that? So
I'm a big advocate of paying attention to the clock in the body rather than the clock on the wall. And so we've all got circadian rhythms, and we don't think about them all the time, but except if I was to ask you the question, are you a morning person, are you an early bird or a night owl, etc., most people can answer that question. Right. About 80% of us fall into what we call early bird or moderate, which means our clock is aligned with the sun coming up and the sun going down. So we wake up when it's light, we start to feel sleepy when it gets dark. Now, in that cycle, where our mental alertness is at its best in the morning up until around midday. And then we start to get in the afternoon, our physical dexterity is better. So routine stuff is easy to do. We don't need our smarts so much. And so straight up, you can get better results in your day if you think, what are the things that require my smarts? And particularly for knowledge workers, and which a lot of people are these days. If I'm a knowledge worker, I'm hired from a genius. Do I, when do I do my best work? Which the answer is in the morning. And so when we protect our mornings for our most important work, then it doesn't matter what happens through the rest of the day. So that's how I operate. That's how I recommend people operate. Why would you go against nature, really?
Also counterintuitively, you say that we perform best with less, and that you can build free space into your day. What do you mean by that?
Well, the first time I read about studies around this, I too was a little incredulous, to be fair. And these studies go back as far as the turn of the 20th century when, there was the study done by Taylor, who, our very first management consultant. Yep. Who was looking at people who were loading pig iron onto the back of rail freight cars. And the usual routine was the one we're very familiar with, is you have a day's work, you have a bit of a break in the morning, a bit of a lunch break, a bit of a break in the afternoon, and your work day's set out. He took a pile of guys and said, how about we do a different model where he had them work for 25 minutes, go as hard as you can for 25 minutes, then take a 35-minute break, and then just do 8 cycles of that. And they loaded 60% more on the back of the freight cars. So I get that anyone listening would go, yeah, but I'm not loading pig iron. Totally get that. And so fast forward into the future, and we have people like Francesco Cirillo, who does the work around how long can people focus for before they become distracted, or their brain starts to fog, or they're not producing as well as they could. And he came up with the magic number of around 25 minutes. And so if you focus for 25 minutes, then take a break, and then focus for another 25 minutes. Now, not necessarily a 35-minute break, although all power to you. He says a 5-minute break is enough. But this idea that we build breaks into our day more consistently and regularly, rather than just the go hard all morning, shove a sandwich in your mouth at lunchtime and then go hard till you knock off, it's just not effective, and you just don't get as much done.
And so when you say do more with less, what I hear you saying is you can do more if you're spending less time working in spurts. Do I have kind of that right?
Yeah, look, and another way to think about it is that the human body is designed for recovery. And so what I'm really saying is that if we have a lot to do, we'll do it best if we're rested.
Right, okay.
Yep. And so if we're constantly, so a lot of the times we're operating in what I refer to as surge capacity. We're just 100% on, 100% of the time, go. And we kind of never stop. We never pause. Now, I could probably talk to you about research into why daydreaming is really good and why boredom is an indicator that you should be resting, all those kinds of thoughts. But really it's about, you need to maintain this system that is your primary system for getting stuff done. So we are designed for sprints and rest. If we do marathons, we have to rest considerably afterwards. But so many of us run marathons at a sprint and we're just never resting properly. So I bet people who are listening right now are going, yeah, I don't sleep that well, or I never have time out. My brain is constantly switched on. And, that we know where that leads. That leads to, breakdowns, burnout, et cetera. So.
What you're saying actually is interesting, because I mean, if you were to maybe extrapolate a little bit, and maybe I'm going a little too far out on a limb here, so kind of some of the studies that have come out during COVID-19, remote working, is that once companies sent a lot of their employees home to work remotely, some of them reported that productivity went up. And I'm wondering if part of that is when you're working from home. I mean, I've worked from home for 20 years. I do tend to work in spurts. I'll work 25, 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes. And then I get up, I wander out to the kitchen, I grab something to eat, I pet the cat, I walk the dog, whatever. Then I come back and I continue working again. And I think a lot of people probably during the pandemic, that's kind of what they develop. They work for a little bit, they're at home, so they go throw a load of wash in the washing machine or whatever. They're taking these breaks because they're at home. And I'm wondering if that's tying into what you're talking about here, there are just kind of, because of the nature of working from home, they are working in spurts, and that is leading to better productivity. What do you think?
That's not out on a limb at all. That's actually right on the mark. In fact, one of the things I do when I run workshops via, Zooms and stuff like that is when it comes time to take a break, I say to people, now go stick a load of washing on, go pat the dog, take a walk, go empty the dishwasher, go, sweep the deck or whatever you've got to do. Go do something that's completely not work related, because that's how we decompress. Now, others might say, oh, that sounds like procrastination to me. And it's like, it's not at all. It's, in fact, the instinct to just get up and stretch and go into another room and, fold a bit of washing away, dried washing away, whatever it might be. That's a very strong and appropriate instinct to help decompress. Because if you think about it, the human mind is for having ideas, not storing them. And so the way in which the brain empties out stuff is through things like either writing lots of things down or taking these decompressing breaks where we turn the brain off for a second from having to think.
Right. So before we go, just give me, if somebody's listening to us right now and they're saying, I am just, I'm just totally stressed. I at work, I just feel like I'm overwhelmed. What would be the number one, if you could just tell them just one thing to try, what would it be?
I'd love you to protect the last hour of your day today of work, whatever you consider your work time, is protect it right now. Go and cancel a meeting if you have to, move something around. But have an hour today that's empty. And then I want you to sit down and think about what are the things I could do this afternoon that would make tomorrow's start easier. So it could be that you plan tomorrow's meals. It could be that you plan what you're wearing, the route to work, or if you're driving somewhere, whatever you're doing, have a look at your meetings for tomorrow and just think, what could I prepare for that? And then I want you to think about the three most important things. I know that's a magic number a lot of productivity people talk about. The three most important things you could do tomorrow. Plan that out the night before. So when people are absolutely stressed out, I always say it always starts at the end of the day, preparing yourself to make the next day just that little bit better. And that starts getting you on a cycle. So I call it an hour of power. Do an hour of power at the end of the day.
So you start off your day the next morning already kind of set up for where you're going to go.
Yeah, and look, it could be little things. I don't finish my work. I've also worked from home for around 20 years, and my routine is that I'm a clean desk policy person. So I tidy up my desk at the end of the day. I put away my coffee cup and just clean everything up. So when I come back the next day, it's all good to go. And if I'm doing a session like this, then I would have the studio all set up good to go. So I would sit down and be ready. So I'm not having to scramble. And it's partly related to the phenomenon of decision fatigue. How many decisions can I make the night before? That means I don't have to make a bunch of decisions the following morning because they're all done and thought through for me.
All right. Well, Donna McGeorge, author of the It's About Time series of books. Appreciate it. There is a link out to her books on Amazon down below the player page there, so be sure to go check her out. Donna, appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time today.
Dirk, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And that is it for today's show. If you have anybody you'd like us to bring on the show, some books you'd like us to cover, some equipment, just send us an email to qdl@qualitydigest.com, and we'll do our best to get them or that stuff on the show. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you at the next QDL. So long.